Baseball fans, you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Who's going to win the spot? Is it going to be Reynaldo Lopez? Is it going to be Bryce Elder? Well, for me, going into the offseason or going into the early part of spring training, I would have told you I thought it would be Bryce Elder. Because of the year he had last year, at least the first half, I thought, if he's any good in spring training, he's going to run away with that spot. I just don't see the Braves making that change now for a guy like Reynaldo Lopez. It's not someone like a Chris Sale who just jumps off the page. But here so far in spring training, it has not gone well for Bryce Elder. So far, he has a 7.04 ERA through 7 2/3, while Reynaldo, through the same amount of innings, has a 1.13 ERA. So it's not exactly perfect. It's a small sample size, but this is what the talking points are right now. This is what everyone's pointing to and going, well, will it be Reynaldo Lopez? Will it be Bryce Elder? This is why everyone is questioning what it's going to be. I still think Bryce Elder will likely turn it around and have a solid spot in the rotation at some point this year. And that may surprise some of you. I still think he will, because last year we were in the same boat with Bryce Elder. It was Dylan Dodd and Jared Schuster who were fighting for that fifth spot in last season's spring training. So I think it could still fluctuate either way. And remember, guys, this is not the roster for the full season at all. This is purely in a couple of weeks where we're going to be on opening day. I still think this roster can fluctuate wildly throughout the season. The good news is when you look at the bullpen, and I'm going to pull that graphic back up, when you look at the bullpen, you have a ton of guys on that right side who could very well, fill in, here and there. I really like Ray Kerr. I really like Ken Giles. But Snit has already said that Ken Giles looks really good. They just want to get him right in the minors. They want to get him some consistent innings. And that's the other thing. I mentioned the fact that you have to kind of narrow things down in the early part of spring training. I mean, a lot of these guys aren't seeing innings. I mean, it's small sample sizes that we're seeing. A.J. Smith-Shawver, Darius Vines, I think, could get some starts this year. I don't think that's out of the question. We saw it last year. So I think that's going to happen. I think Ken Giles is going to be a much bigger component to this bullpen in the second half of the season than he will be in the first. And there's some other guys that we didn't even mention in that conversation. Tyler Matzik is not going to be there for the first month or so, maybe. I think he's going to be back and ready to go before the All-Star break for sure, and that's a huge component. So keep in mind, you have a ton of guys that are either in the minors or not starting the season at the major league level or healthy, one way or the other, that could very well influence the major league roster before the All-Star break. This is, again, purely for opening day. The roster is only going to improve after that because we have plenty of depth. We have plenty of people who the Braves took a chance on in the offseason who could very well come in and impact immediately. And the other thing is, a lot of the guys who have been optioned, let's go ahead and take another look at that list. The guys on the right here who have been optioned, your Ian Andersons, your Dylan Dodds, A.J. Smith-Shawvers, Darius Vines, those guys are looking for a spot at the Major League roster. Either a bullpen spot, either a starting spot, does not matter. They are looking to make the roster. The other thing to consider here is you're going to have a load of depth throughout this year. That's not a bad thing. So I really love the fact that we're not going into the season questioning, well, what are we going to do if someone gets hurt? We know who's lined up if someone is to get hurt either in the bullpen or the starting rotation. And the other thing is, it's healthy competition. Reynaldo Lopez, Bryce Elder, it's all healthy competition. And I think that's a great thing in spring training. It's a great thing for the entire season. You don't want someone to feel that they are secure necessarily in their spot. You don't want them to think that they're not secure in their spot, but you don't want them to feel like they don't need to bring all they got. Not saying that anybody is. I'm just saying it's a nice thing to know we have competition. It's a nice thing to know that, hey, one of the guys that we, Alex Anthopoulos picked up in the offseason is already making waves in spring training in Reynaldo Lopez. I'm curious to see what a Ray Kerr does later on. We know he throws gas. It's all about controlling it. That's why I think he's going to be in the minors for a while. But the key here is that going to the minors, they're going to be able to get experience, get reps, and get better. Your Ian Andersons, your A.J. Smith-Shawvers, Darius Vines. You could argue that in Smith-Shawver's case, he kind of needs to have some major league opponents, and I don't know that sending him down to the minors is going to do that, but at the end of the day, that's how the roster is at the moment. It is competitive. It is hard to get in, and anytime you have a World Series competitor, which the Braves have been over the past few years, that's how the roster is going to be. It's not going to be easy to break into the roster. So far, I like what we're doing on the pitching side of things. I'm curious to see how it shakes out. I think that if you're looking strictly at the numbers, Reynaldo Lopez is the obvious favorite. I don't know how you can say anything else at this point. When one guy's ERA is north of 7 and the other guy's ERA is sub 2, I'm going to go with the guy who's sub 2, and I'm going to go with the hot hand. But that's not to say that throughout this season, Reynaldo Lopez has never really found his way as a starter consistently. I don't know that he'll do it early on this year. If he does, great, we'll run with him. But you go with the hot hand. And I think if Reynaldo Lopez has got it going on, then we'll roll with him. But if not, you always have Bryce Elder. You always have A.J. Smith-Shawver. And we've all seen it, especially last year when we lost Max Fried and we lost Kyle Wright for either the majority of the season or, in Kyle Wright's case, the entire season just about. We all saw that, Bryce Elder and A.J. Smith-Shawver, Darius Vines were called up in different situations to give a spot start, and we're going to see that. We're going to see that this year at some point. We don't want anyone to get hurt. You heard that. But if so, we have depth, we have ability to mix and match. And, when your fourth guy to get called up is either Darius Vines or Dylan Dodd, that's a pretty good starting rotation. I think the Braves are really set up for success on the pitching side of things.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.